Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Before we begin the presentation, there are a few items to share with you. All phone lines will be muted during today's session. We will take questions through the chat box. You can access the chat box by clicking on the cartoon cloud in the upper left corner of your screen. You can enter your question for the moderator there. You may submit your question at any time during the presentation, and we will answer as many questions this afternoon as time allots. We appreciate your participation, and we look forward to getting started. Now, I am pleased to introduce today's speakers. Bill Bussey, Director, Office of the Career Technical Education. Jamie Nash, Associate Director in the Office of Career Technical Education. And Lauren Massey, Ohio Tech Prep Consultant. Lauren, good afternoon. You'll be getting us started today.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. I'd like to give a brief overview again on the legislation and then move on to questions as Michael suggested. The Adult Career Opportunity Pilot Program was created in House Bill 483. The purpose is to assist adults who are at least 22 years old or older complete their high school diploma while completing an industry credential or certificate. The planning requirements of the legislation include the grants must be used to develop and offer a sustainable program for students, again, who are ages 22 and older. The program must allow students to obtain the high school diploma while completing the industry credential or certificate, provide career advising and outreach, and provide an opportunity for students to receive a competency-based education. Eligible applicants for the grant are Ohio community colleges, technical colleges, state community colleges, and Ohio technical centers. These are defined in Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 3354, 3357, and 3358. The legislation provides planning grants for up to $500,000 to up to 5 eligible institutions or career technical centers, and these will be awarded geographically across the state within the 5 regions. The regions are based on Jobs Ohio regions. You'll note in the Jobs Ohio map there are 6 regions. For Southwest Ohio, the Western and Southwestern region have been combined to make 5 regions for the purpose of this grant. The timeline for the grant is as follows. Originally, applications were due November 21st, and we'll go into more detail, but in light of additional information received regarding the grant in this webinar today, we wanted to give folks a little bit more time to prepare the application. So we have extended the deadline for the application to 5 p.m. on November 28th. So please note that. The award period remains the same, January 1st through June 30th, or the second half of FY15, and the program implementation is required in the following academic year of 2015-16. Again, the application is posted on our website with the keyword search Adult Career Opportunity Pilot. It is an online submission application. I'm receiving a lot of questions about how to submit the application. There is a submit button which will automatically generate an email and attach your application, again, automatically to this email, where you can then attach the budget narrative, which is also required, and any additional signature pages. Another question I'm fielding is there may be more than the allotted partner slots on the application. I believe that there are 2 grant partner signature lines. If you have additional partners that require additional signatures, please feel free to scan in an additional page and attach that to this email as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lauren. Now we invite you to submit your questions to us. As a reminder, just click on the cartoon cloud in the left side of your webinar toolbar, and you'll see a dialog box pop up, and then you can submit your question for today's speakers there. Also, you will see a link in the dialog box to download an FAQ, which was prepared based on questions that the office has received in the past few weeks. So you can use that as a resource as well. In addition, we are going to cover several of those questions this morning and talk through those. So as you're typing in your questions to us, we'll begin with some of the questions we've received ahead of time. Our first question: what criteria will be used for the awarding of a diploma?
Okay. The intent of this pilot program is to offer adult students a competency-based education. The grantee should utilize and develop a competency-based model. I want to elaborate on what Michael said. We are using the FAQs that were collected from the first webinar, and our intent was to answer these questions and post them. Between then and now, we've received additional information and guidance on the grant. So we wanted to update those FAQs, but instead of posting them and confusing everyone, we decided, a second webinar was warranted so that we could walk through those. So these are some of the questions. These are the main questions where the answers may have changed significantly in light of that additional information. So I just wanted to clarify that before moving on. So the criteria for awarding the diploma, again, the intent of the legislation is to develop a competency-based model that assesses a student's current readiness level at the beginning, and once that's determined, a student success plan should be developed to include a program of study and necessary wraparound services that will ensure that student's success in getting that high school diploma and the industry credential or certificate. An example of this is, say a program offers a student opportunity to learn or to earn an LPN credential. The academic skills necessary for a high school diploma would be embedded into the technical content standards, and upon entry into the program, the student would be assessed on the academic competencies, and then essentially enroll in the credential program. And then you could expect that by earning the credential, the student would simultaneously learn the academic knowledge necessary to earn a high school diploma. So, thus the student is academically ready for a smooth transition into college-level courses for continued education or career.
Thank you. Our next question: will students need to pass state-required tests or a minimum number of credits?
So the answer to this is no. Again, the program should be developed to offer students a competency-based education model. So it embeds the academic learning with the technical content standards and measures the learning and not the time, which is credits, of course. So the student's not required to complete the same requirements as a traditional high school student. The legislation is designed to give an alternative. We don't want to offer what's already been offered, which may be why the student wasn't successful in the first place. So that's why this is focused on that, measuring the learning and the competency versus seat time.
Thank you. Who issues the high school diploma to the student?
As we mentioned on the first webinar, rules for the implementation of the adult pilot program are yet to be written. We're working on that. We're meeting with our advisory committee beginning next week. So those are under development, but we do anticipate that the State Board of Education will issue this diploma to the eligible students, and how that will look, and what the process will be for that, for you all to submit those eligible students or award them, is yet to be determined. But the intent is that the State Board of Education will award this diploma.
Thank you. What if a student has earned all of their credits but did not pass the OGT?
They are eligible for this program. So again, because it's competency-based, you would assess that student coming in the door to determine where they're at. As long as a student has not achieved their traditional high school diploma or their GED equivalent, they're eligible to participate in this program.
Is a minimum number of credits needed prior to enrolling?
Again, no. With the competency-based model, a common assessment should be used to determine their level. So the transcript analysis isn't necessary because the student will progress by demonstrating those competencies rather than, again, the time spent in the course.
Thank you very much. What are allowable expenditures for this grant?
Okay, per the House Bill 43 and the line item description, the funds for fiscal year 2015 for implementation or for the pilot program should be used for planning and to develop capacity for implementation, which again is an additional piece, from our first conversation about this. So the funds can be used for planning and to develop capacity for implementation in fiscal year FY15 in anticipation for the 2015-16 academic year, or FY16. Based on this, examples of allowable use of funds may include, but of course are not limited to, costs associated with building a competency-based model or project-based learning modules or lessons, developing a common assessment, surveying the needs of the region to determine the population to be served, marketing to build capacity, identification of industry credentials. So again, what are you going to offer? Survey the population, what are the needs, what makes sense for the region, and also converting academic standards to competencies. So those are all examples of allowable expenditures.
Great, thank you very much. Can the screening and advising of students begin during the planning period?
So again, this is similar to the last question. So the funds can be used for planning and to develop capacity for implementation of the program.
Will the program be state funded in the 15-16 academic year?
As we talked about on the last webinar, we have pulled together an advisory committee that includes stakeholders from ODE, from the Board of Regents, from ABLE, from the technical centers, and the Ohio Association of Community Colleges, plus community college presidents. So that advisory committee is tasked with putting together a report due to the governor's office and the legislature December 31st of this year. And part of that requires them to recommend funding models. So that is yet to be determined. However, we want to share that the intent of this committee is to recommend state funding for implementation of the program in the next academic year, so 2015-16. So that we do anticipate that that will be part of our recommendations in that report.
If there isn't state funding available, can students be charged for tuition?
Again, our intent is that it will be state funded. We don't believe that the intent of the legislation is for students to incur costs associated with participation in this program. That is yet to be determined. We will see funding for the program will be determined in the upcoming biennial budget process, of course, but that is not our hope or expectation for this program.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've received several questions through the chat box, and we'll begin going through those now. We remind you to submit your questions through the chat box, and we look forward to addressing as many as possible. First, to get us started, can funds be used to pay for a pilot project coordinator to orchestrate interaction inputs from regional partners?
This is Bill Bussey. Yeah, I believe that would be an allowable expense. If you go back to the allowable expenses for the planning grant, as long as it's not planning another or a current personnel on a staff. If you're hiring someone from outside, I would expect that to be an allowable expense.
Excellent. This is in regards to Title IV and Pell Grants. This individual commented that those require that the student have proof of a high school diploma or a GED. How may they be enrolled in 600-plus hour programs and still receive financial aid?
Well, the answer to that would be for a Pell Grant, as you stated in your statement before the question, they would not be eligible for financial aid. So if you have a program that has a credential that is 600 hours or more, then you would have to look for other sources of revenue to pay for that tuition, because we don't expect there to be a cost to the individual student.
What is the yardstick for measuring competency in measured learning? And the individual gave examples of both Workies and Compass, if those would be appropriate.
This is Jamie Nash, and those examples are great examples of that type of an assessment to measure where a student's at and then where a student's going to end up at the end. I would even look at other assessments out there as well through your planning team.
Excellent. Thank you. If an eligible student owes fees to the previous high school, does that high school need to waive those fees, or will the program be required to cover fees for transcripts?
The committee is going to take that question back to our senior leadership. I will say that with other programs out there that the fees are waived for participation in a program of this nature, but we will make sure that we get an interpretation on that from our legal team and from our senior leadership team as well.
Why is a GED not acceptable?
It is obviously an acceptable alternative in a typical setting, but for this legislation specifically, the intent is to provide the diploma. So that's how the legislation reads. That's the interpretation of the legislation, and so that is why.
Thank you. Are there income guidelines for students to be eligible?
No. There is no income guidance or guidelines for students to be eligible for this program.
With respect to the year a student graduated and the number of credits, this participant asks, individuals who were to graduate before 1993 only needed 18 credits to graduate. Do we use the 1993 rules of 18 credits or 21 credits, which are currently required?
Credits will not be utilized in this program for getting the diploma and obtaining the technical skill industry credential. So credits, it's going to be competency based. So once the student receives the competency, the level to move to transition to basically to the next level and obtain that industry credential, they will receive the diploma.
Thank you. Would a certificate issued by a community college be viable?
What?
And we received a clarification from that participant. Thank you. The follow-up to that is what is considered to be a viable industry credential. Thanks for that clarification.
Well, the viable industry credential will be the one that's on the Ohio Department of Education's credential list that's being developed currently. That list will be used for obtaining a high school, a high school diploma for the class of, it's the freshman class starting this year. That will be one use of the industry credential list. The other one will be for the report cards, and that list is being developed through requirement of the State Board of Education, and that it be on the Ohio Means Jobs in-demand jobs and credential list. So that's the way those credentials are being developed. That list will be announced sometime before the end of December.
Great. And we received a question asking for the link to the application. So if you go to the ODE website, education.ohio.gov, and search the keywords Adult Career Opportunity Pilot, both application and supporting resources are available there. We did have a question regarding the rubric and its availability.
We do plan after the webinar, or by Monday, I would say Monday at the latest, to post the FAQ document on the website that Michael is talking about, where the resources are along with the rubric.
Great. Thanks very much. Our next question, is there a minimum skill level that will be needed for a student to enroll in the program?
There's not a minimum skill level, whether it be technical or academic skills, but we would strongly suggest that some type of assessment be incorporated into the proposal to assess students as to where they are in regards to their skill level.
Thank you. Are there high school competencies, or is there a list of high school competencies available on the ODE website, or can one be shared in the future?
Well, when we say competencies to gain a high school diploma, that's not necessarily correlated to what a student is expected. But if you want to see what the standards are, there are standards for every course that's required for a student to pass during their high school career and get their diploma. Again, but we want to emphasize again that this is very competency-based, and a student could gain many of those competencies or learn those standards through the process of gaining a credential. And so, how might you propose that those be equal and still have the rigor of a high school diploma?
Thank you very much. Back to allowable expenditures. Are remediation boot camps an allowable expenditure?
That is
College remediation.
It's an allowable expenditure for planning. Okay.
And we're going to ask that individual if they could just give us a brief synopsis either here in the chat function or through email afterward, just to make sure we understand what a remediation boot camp entails. We would need just a few additional details so we can provide an accurate response to you. So we appreciate that, and I will message you to that effect as well. So thank you. Our next question is also in regards to competencies and credentials. So, and it's a two-parter. So I'll read both parts, and then we can dive into each one. Can you explain just a little more about the competency-based diploma part fitting into the industry credential? And the question goes further: if they can pass the credential, is it assumed they have the competencies needed for a diploma?
Oh, I thought you were going to. Well, a couple of us might add to that. First of all, for the end of the question, if they can pass the credential, is it assumed they have the competencies needed for a diploma? It cannot be assumed. I think it would be up to whoever's writing the proposal to justify if in fact that student in particular has gained those competencies through the earning that credential. If so, yes. If not, then what other manner will the proposal show that that student deserves a high school diploma?
Great, thank you very much. Some clarification in regards to submitting. This individual is on the website and has the PDF and all the resources. This individual is unable to locate the submit button for the grant, and just wondered if it was being overlooked, or she was doing all the proper things to upload it.
I would suggest that person or anyone having technical assistance with submitting the application contact me, Lauren Massey, and I'll help you through it.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. Why are only 5 grants to be awarded? Why not issue more grants with smaller amounts?
This was the directive in the legislation. So, and technically it says up to 5 awards. So depending on proposals and things, the superintendent has the authority to, award up to 5.
Great. And with respect to the awards, can those serve any person in Ohio or only those in the region the award was in?
I think that's probably going to be determined through us writing the rules later after the planning process is over. Geographically, it would just make sense for a person that lives in that area to work with the person who receives, or the group that receives the grant. So those type of specific questions, I don't think we can answer at that time. But the goal is to serve every student or every student, every 22-year-old or older that's interested in this program.
Thank you. And will the location of the institution factor into the decision for the grant at all?
The location will determine what region on the application you'll need to apply for. So I would think that would be, so yes, it's a deciding factor if there are multiple institutions within a region applying versus maybe one in another region. I mean, it's just, that puts you in your region to apply for the grant.
Excellent. And we've gone through our questions, but we want to make sure that if you have a question that you have a time to submit it. So we're going to pause just briefly for you to type in any remaining questions you have. We greatly appreciate your participation this afternoon. And should you have any questions or any concerns after this webinar, this will be recorded and posted along with the FAQ that was sent out to you earlier in the chat function. So we will pause briefly just to give you a last moment to type in your questions. Thank you very much, everyone. We received just a couple more questions, and we'll address those before we conclude our session. Our next question, is there an advantage to combining with other schools in your region to be awarded a grant, or does it mostly depend on the grant proposal itself?
There is a section on the application that speaks to grant partners, so it certainly is considered, and also on the rubric that will be shared. Collaboration within the region and across systems is encouraged. A consortium model can be effective, as you know, in preparing the students to have multiple pathways and opportunities even beyond this program, whether at the college level or career. So absolutely, we would encourage collaboration.
Excellent. And our last question, a clarifier, the grant should be written for competency-based only, not credit recovery. Is that correct?
Yeah, to answer that, it's definitely competency-based. And what we want to be able to do is you want to develop basically a program of study that's competency-based, and that also has the technical skill attainment with the industry credential as well. So it's developing that program of study that's competency-based and that aligns with the industry credential.
Excellent. Thank you very much. May I ask for final comments? Would you like to, any final comments?
Well, this is the second webinar. If you have other questions, please contact Lauren. And if she's not available, you can get a hold of Jamie or I. We do have a stakeholders meeting on Monday that will involve all the interested groups that we spoke about so far, and hopefully we'll have some more guidance after that. And if there's anything new that might come out of that stakeholders meeting, we'll be sure to get that communicated on our website.
Great. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate your participation this afternoon. This concludes our webinar.